I was on it before Steven.
Oh, you were on it before Steven.
I was on it before there was a mechanical shark. No, I had worked with Steven on Sugarland Express with Zanuck and Brown. They were talking about Steven doing it, but when they bought the book, they sent me the galley sheets. So before the script was written, and they asked if I could do some sketches with the shark activity in the book. So I did like 24 2-foot, 18 by 2-foot charcoal drawings of shark activity. Shark coming, hitting the boat, shark eating the kids, you know, all sorts of shark stuff. And then they used those sketches. We had a big meeting with all the department heads, because it was a studio system then, about making the shark. I would talk to Steven. He hadn't signed yet, but I would talk to him because I thought he was going to do it. And we decided in a naive way that we were going to do, if we were going to do it, we're going to do a full-size shark in the real ocean, not one of these phony backdrops and not miniatures. So when they asked about the effects department here, if they could build a shark, they said it would take 2 years. And so when the meeting was over, Marshall Green was head of the production here. He asked me, he said, "Do you think you could get somebody to make the shark?" And I said, "Yes, of course." And everybody I asked, Disney, they all said it would take a year, 2 years, you know, a year minimum. And I found Bob Matty, who was a retired effects guy, and he said he could do it. And we got a really good crew, so we started off doing that. So he really only had maybe a quarter of the time that everybody else said they needed. So I scouted locations, and Steven started working with, you know, actors and stuff like that. So that it sort of grew, you know. It wasn't like, oh, here, you do this with a monster shark and all that. I sort of contributed to that. I did the model of the shark, 4'1", and worked with the neck biologist. And so it was an evolution. The fact that it didn't work right away was because they didn't have time to test it. They started shooting in May, you know, and so he had 5 months when he should have had a year and 5 months. So it wasn't a shock to me when, you know, it was just, it evolved. People say, "Oh, do you want to make it scary or everything?" Actually not. We wanted the town to look as real as possible, because they were going to be influenced that summer, their economy and everything, by this threat of the shark. We didn't want to change that. We added a little bicycle shop and stuff. We added that sign, you know. Quint in Menemsha, the fishing village, that was a different story. We really wanted to make him more of a character. So his shack stands out. He had the biggest shack. He had the biggest boat, with a real character boat, you know, with a pulpit that stuck out and the crow's nest and all that. So we embellished that area because of the character. We wanted him bigger than life. But the town, we wanted to be very realistic. What I did embellish was the beaches. I built the gazebo and the little cabanas and stuff like that. And that made it a little bit more summery than Martha's Vineyard really is, and a little bit more lighthearted, you know, with the, you know, but the gazebo, gazebo does exist in Edgartown, so I just sort of built one that looked like that in a different place. And so it was just to enhance, you know, the simplicity of it, that the monster is not it's a realistic monster, but he's not a monster, he's a shark. And he's slightly bigger than most white sharks. The fact that he pursues these guys is a little bit beyond, you know, what a white shark. I don't think there's a vindictive great white shark, but that's the only one thing that made this slightly unreal, is that he was going to get those guys. Well, you know, the thing is, I did JAWS 2 after that, and I was on that for a year and 3-4 months. And then I did JAWS 3. And by the time I did 3 JAWS movies, I was ready to move on.
You were done with sharks.
I was done with sharks. I did Geronimo and I did other movies, you know, that had nothing to do with sharks. I have nothing against sharks or for sharks. Basically, I wasn't involved with sharks. I was just making a big prop, you know. I know that doesn't sound very dramatic, but that's sort of the way it is.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.